So parent-to-parent supports is a great form of support, which can be within your context. And what that means is it's a specialized focus on parenting children like yours. So parent-to-parent support for families who have children with autism, who have children with mental health issues, who have, chronic, feeding issues or something. The benefits of those kinds of groups is it reminds you you're not alone and your experience isn't unique. Because if you go to other groups where there are just typical parents, it often reminds you that you're not the same as those other people, that your experience is different. And it can just feel very weird. That's where the stigma and the blame and the shame comes in. And you're comparing. So you go to this group for the first time, and I actually remember the first time I went to a support group like this, and Deborah Pugh was running it. And my first thought of going there was, I'll go to this, but I'm not really like all those other parents. My kid may have ASD, but he's not really that bad. I'll just kind of go there and see what it's like for these other people. And it was such an eye-opening experience for me. And Claire Schumann also was involved in those groups. And it was the first time, really, that I'd been around other parents who were speaking the same experience as I had spoken. And it was hugely helpful just to know that. Like, I'm not the only strange, incompetent parent out there with a really weird kid, which is how I felt. So it lets you know you're not alone, which is also a strategy that you can use around that connecting with common humanity. I'm not the only person. In fact, I'm probably one of many thousands of people in this world who have experienced a child like this, systems like this, etc. They are best when they're facilitated by someone who's been there but survived. So if they're in that kind of rage and all that, that's really not great. But if they've come through it and they've rebounded or they've been partway through, then they're empowered and they absolutely know how to do that. And if they have some training in group process, that's really helpful. Because some parents, especially parents like me, they take a lot of management, right? So you want to have someone who knows how to do that. So I have now a clip from a parent-to-parent support where these parents are talking about their experience in parenting and then how the parent support group was helpful.
I feel like most parents, when we're pregnant or we're about to have a baby or however means we get our child, we go through this period where we do fantasize. We want the sun, moon, and the stars. We want our children to have a better life than we ever had. All those dreams, all those visions and goals. And when you find yourself going in a different direction on that journey, it can be really scary as a parent because those aspirations that you have become very different. So what started out as, geez, I wonder, will she be an astronaut, a scientist, or a physicist, became, will she live for another 24 hours? Will we make it to another birthday? And so those goals and aspirations change.
Over the course of 18 years, we have probably connected with over 100,000 families, and that's no exaggeration. Every family's experience to me is so humbling, and what I know is common for all families is this is really hard. It's really hard, and what makes it even harder is the way that people look at us and treat us as though somehow we caused this, and somehow if we were just better parents, our kids wouldn't have to be like this. And we're at a time where that is just really not okay anymore.
I think about my son who has mental health challenges, and I guess my notions and expectations were never about them. It was always about me as a parent. And so when I look at anything that would have come along that was hard or not going the way I pictured it going as a mom, that I always looked at what I could have done differently. So there was a lot of shame involved of being a parent with a kid that wasn't doing as well as everybody else's, that was having a hard time. So I was always looking to myself to see what I needed to do different and taking more classes and learning more and doing more so that I could be a better mom.
kids live in homes and schools and communities, and we kind of approach child and youth mental health as though there's just one linear place that kids exist, and that as long as we connect with the child and we treat the child, that everything will be okay. We actually need to look at it bigger, look at it as a family systems. How can we come alongside families to help them do the things that they want to do for their kids but maybe don't know how to do?
I think the one thing that I see often is that we look at parents as one group and youth as another and service providers as another. And I think getting to a place of together-centered where we're all really important, that we all see each other as assets, is really a place where we can have things and mental health outcomes go so much better.
Parents speaking to other parents or caregivers speaking to other caregivers about their experiences are invaluable. And the reason that they're invaluable is because our formal supports, due to time and capacity and their own workloads, don't sometimes have the time to be able to sit with a parent or a caregiver and really properly explain in language that's understood by them what some of the things they're going through are, where they can find those resources I've spoken about. Other parents with lived experience is like a rich, untapped resource.
I think that the benefit to connecting with other families who have lived this is that no one else knows it the way that we're going to know it. Someone who provides services or knows about services, they know about it. But when I talk to another family, they've actually used the services. They've walked trying to find the services. And that's a very different perspective. And there's something valuable in talking to somebody else who's there, or who perhaps is in a different place than you are, so that you have some hope, knowing that as a family, that someone else has made it through the other side, is different than a service provider telling me that families make it through. I want to hear from a family who's made it through this and hasn't lost their child. Yeah.
What I hope to provide in terms of creating a Parents Helping Parents or a peer support group for parents is a safe space when we are waiting. And I think that's really important. More and more when I work with families and community and I get their stories and about their journeys, we know that realistically we're looking at 1 to 2 year wait lists for many services. That's 1 to 2 years of sitting and brewing in crises sometimes, in not knowing where to access services, in not knowing who to turn to. And just imagine if we could have this initiative where we have parents with lived experience waiting, to greet or meet parents who are sitting and wait and not being able to do anything, basically sitting in limbo. What impact can that make?
So our Parent in Residence program, they're parents with lived experience, and they come alongside other parents. And so what it gives is, because we have a team, that team shares their knowledge with each other. And when they are able to connect with another parent, they're bringing more than just their one story as a parent. They're bringing multiple stories from a lot of families. Because sometimes one story doesn't resonate with another parent because it's not similar. But when we bring all those family stories with us, that we carry with us when we meet with other families and when we meet with service providers, the richness of that knowledge is invaluable. And we have heard that from not only the families, but we've heard that from the service providers too.
That little video clip I thought was very helpful in terms of sharing the parent's perspective, but also talking about getting beyond just what some of the challenges are, and a protective factor, which is having these parent-to-parent support groups can be very powerful and a way of Also empowering those parents who participate in those groups as supporters, because they are teaching other parents. And we know as teachers, for example, if you teach someone else to do something, you walk alongside them while you're learning the skill or you're teaching the skill, you get even better at it. And that's a huge source of satisfaction for many of these parents who become supporters of other parents. I did want to just mention, the focus of this, of course, is on supporting parents who have children with special needs. But in the professional literature, professional caregiver literature, it's highly important that we also support, and so that the workplaces that have individuals who work with children with special needs, especially those who are working in the closest with those children. So in the school system, it's often EAs or youth workers or perhaps behavior interventionists. In the hospitals, it's often nurses or even nursing assistants. And then, of course, we have the teachers, and then we have counselors and individuals like that. But those who are working closest professionally, in a professional capacity with a child or an individual with special needs, they also need the same types of supports. So you can also hopefully apply this to yourself, even though the examples are a bit different. And so I won't talk much about this, but I did just want to mention that from the literature on caregiver, professional caregiver stress, a huge recommendation and important thing is to have on-site what's called supervision and support. Psychologists know what that is. Social workers know what that is. Most teachers don't know what it is because, unfortunately, they are not used to a model that provides that. We do provide that at Popar to our staff because I implemented it. And so staff as well are going to go through these experiences of not feeling supported, not having enough resources, trying to do the best they can and being really connected often to this child or this adolescent. And not just not knowing the skills, which can be the case and training can help, but needing to have that emotional support. My early experience, I worked in Toronto at a place called the Youthdale Treatment Centre, and it was with adolescents who were in residential care because they came from severely challenging family backgrounds. Most of them had some form of severe complex trauma. And every week, we had a support supervision session that included all of our team. It included a psychologist, social worker, et cetera, so that we could debrief. And so I'm just wanting to throw that out there for those professionals, for the EAs, for the nurses, for the counselors, et cetera, who are participating, that this is something that many medical facilities do know about this, but many schools don't know about it because they haven't learned this stuff. How important that is to have that. And if you don't have it in your workplace, then it's something to ask about because you need that support too. If you're not strong enough and you're not given a place where your emotions and your self-criticism, like, gee, I'm a terrible EA. I tried to get him to do this and this, and he said he hated me or he bit me or whatever. Again, that happens to mom. Mom has to learn not to take it personally. It was about he was frustrated and didn't know how to communicate. You also need that same support. So I just wanted to address that.